It's been called the Fire Festival of Books. It's been called DashCon 2.0. It's been called a scam by the people who attended. But what it hasn't been called is over, because those involved are saying they are planning to take legal action against the creator of the event after she failed to provide them with refunds after being given several deadlines. Also, it turns out that the woman running this allegedly, at least at one point, was a fundamentalist Christian. Where to even begin? Hi, my name's Rachel, and today we're talking about A Million Lives Book Festival. A Million Lives Book Festival was supposed to be an incredible book festival in Baltimore, Maryland, where readers and authors and bookish vendors would come together for a magical weekend of book buying, bookish panels, bookish cosplay, bookish music, and even bookish tattoos, culminating in the Lavender Fantasy Ball. But it ended up on the news for being very much not what it was advertised to be, and most of all, a financial nightmare for everybody who was involved. We are going to do a rundown from the beginning, but to summarize, this event was put on by Archer Fantasy Events, owned by a woman named Grace, who goes by the author pen name of Grace Willows. Grace's only event before A Million Lives Festival was this romantasy dinner. She had two upcoming events after A Million Lives. One was a release for her own book. That event was free, but I doubt she will ever get people to attend even an event that she puts on for free after this. But all further events of Archer Fantasy have been canceled after nearly everything that was promised to the attendees and vendors at A Million Lives Book Festival was not delivered upon. So settle in, lay back and relax as I explain to you this absolute disaster. I would get cozy because this is a doozy. I know I'm cozy. Thanks to today's sponsor, which is FlexiSpot. This is their very stylish and comfortable Lotus recliner, which rocks and swivels and reclines. This is a super wide seat, so I can sit completely cross-legged, or I can do one of these. There's so much room for activities. That's even when I get to sit on it because my kids and my cats are always stealing it. I have the electric version, which just plugs into the wall back there. Allows me to press a button and fully extend to 145 degrees. Yes, I have napped on this. But wait, there's more! A side pocket. Let's take her for a test drive. Oh my god. So you can hide your green books in here, or whatever you want to keep nearby. It also has a USB port, so I can charge my Kindle or my phone from my chair. And then I can keep the USB in the side pocket along with the remote or whatever else I'm hiding from my children. I got mine in cream ivory, which matches the rest of my living room, but they have so many great options for fabrics and colors. If you're interested in getting this incredibly cozy and fabulous chair, you can check it out by clicking the link in that description box below and using my exclusive code LOTUS30 to get $30 off plus free shipping. And thank you again to FlexiSpot for sponsoring today's video. I do wish that they made mini versions of the Lotus for my cats so that I could have my chair back. Who do I call about that? A Million Lives Book Festival took place at the Baltimore Convention Center in Baltimore, Maryland on May 2nd and 3rd, 2025. Their website said, A Million Lives Book Festival is the perfect event to make more bookish friends. This event will include a vendor hall, panels, a content creation room, wait till you see it, fandom cosplay, which I don't think ever happened, a cosplay competition, and a ball. The ball in question, of course, and if you have seen anything about this on the internet, you know looked like this. We'll come back to that. Tickets for this event ranged between $50 to $250, but that's just for attendees. Authors spent a lot of money, and authors were the majority of the people at the event. They had to pay for table fees to have a table at the event. They had to pay for assistant fees if they brought an assistant. And they were told that this event would have 500 to 600 attendees. So the hope is that the authors would make their table fee of $150 back by selling books. So they have to get all of their books to this event. Some flew or drove across the country. Some shipped in their books, hoping to make sales to potential new readers, except there were not 500 to 600 attendees. On day one, there were about 40. But that wasn't the only thing that was missing. There were supposed to be panels. Some panels had no chairs, let alone microphones. Authors sent in swag for VIP swag bags. This disappeared. They were supposed to have badges. Those never appeared. And now those who are attending are understandably pursuing getting refunds that they have not gotten as of me filming this in July of 2025 because all of the money has also also disappeared. Also, before I get into this, just know that all of this is alleged. YouTube woman does disclaimer. All right, let's start from the beginning. Archer Fantasy Events is operated by our girl Grace, last name redacted. She goes by author name Grace Willows. We'll call her that. A quick glance at the website for Archer Fantasy Events tells you that it is solely operated by Grace. There is nobody else on the team. It says, our core values. We are here to host events to help build the bookish community. That's not a value, but okay. We support both traditionally and independently published authors. No discrimination for pronouns, religion, format of reading, genres of reading, or how much you read. No AI. At Archer Management, we support human artists. Now, besides the fact that the first one is not a value, no discrimination for pronouns is a weird way to say what you're trying to say there. It doesn't feel like anybody looked this over or edited it, which makes sense because, again, this was a one-person show. But okay. Grace, held a romantasy-inspired dinner as their first event, which happened September 20th, 2024, at the George Peabody Library in Maryland. I'm going to say their event throughout this, but again, this was done by one person and possibly with the assistance of Grace's husband to some degree or another. Nobody could know except Grace and her husband, right? The dinner looks like it actually went well. A Million Lives Festival was their second event. I assume that it was called A Million Lives because of that quote that says, readers throughout their lives live a million lives, through books. It's just the irony of this being called A Million Lives, and yet it only had 40 attendees. A Million Lives, as I said, was the second event, with a third event scheduled on their Eventbrite, specifically for Grace's own book, scheduled for after A Million Lives. And then there was a fourth event scheduled that had already sold, I don't know about tickets, but definitely authors had paid table fees. And as of this point, those have also not been refunded, but the event is canceled. It was to be called the Elegant Nocturnal Social, and it was going to happen in October 2025. Come join us for a night of sophistication and charm at the Elegant Nocturnal Social, a classy event under the stars. Oh boy, do I have the lowest of expectations as to what was going to happen at that event, having seen what happened at the Lavendar Fantasy Ball at A Million Lives. Assumedly, the ambiance would just be those sticker stars that you stick to your ceiling and they glow. Or maybe one of those things that you plug into the wall and it does like the fake galaxy on your ceiling. I assume that that's what we would be looking at had that event panned out. And it didn't pan out, and honestly, it's probably only because the authors at this event demanded that Grace stop. I do think she would have kept going with all of this had she not been called out in person by the authors, who she caused to lose thousands of dollars. Allegedly. It does say she booked a caterer for the Elegant Nocturnal Social event in October, which I wouldn't be surprised if that was allegedly untrue, but just know that event is no more. So who is Grace? Well, according to her, the organizer of Archer Management, books are my therapy, and I normally have at least one with me at all times. As a kid, I was a huge reader. Some of my favorites were Nancy Drew, Narnia, and any book by Jane Austen. Now, this, if I had been looking into this if I had come into this from a different entry point, I would have said, white woman grew up only reading Narnia and Nancy Drew. That rings a bell as a former fundamentalist woman. And then she says, I started reading again after we adopted a sweet little boy. Once again, that is typically like a sign that we are dealing with a fundie. Now, doesn't always mean that. You know what? The fact is that once I start picking up on red flags, I'm almost never wrong. My fundie radar is always on point. I know my former people. I started this company because I wanted to share my love for reading with others and make them affordable so that anyone can attend. Number one, make what affordable? I started this company because I wanted to share my love for reading with others and make them affordable. Make what affordable, Grace? Clearly nobody proofread this either, which doesn't bode well for all the books she wrote. And number two, it says she started this company, but here's the thing about Archer Management, not a company. At least by the definition of company to mean like what she's implying here. It isn't even a business, at least not officially. There are many articles out about this now, one of which is the the Guardian article, authors speak out against failed US book festival, shattered badges in silence, which sounds like a name of a book now. The article mentions that this business does not even seem to be an LLC. It is unclear if last name redacted formally created a business entity for her company, Archer Fantasy Events or Archer Management, the names her accounts use. The Guardian found no Secretary of State filings that listed last name redacted as an officer or entities under those business names. Grace did not respond to multiple calls for comment. Despite this, Archer Management says that you can work with them to promote your book with their business, which includes author PR packages, which, knowing what's going to happen, that you're going to find out in a bit, is diabolical to have written this down. Everything from monthly PA services to $300 for a book tour. This company that isn't a company has zero testimonials or examples of their work. This business that might not be a business, allegedly, doesn't have a large following on social, so it leads you to wonder how she possibly justified these prices, being that she doesn't show any signs of having experience actually doing it. And that went for the event as well. Now, you might say, okay, well, her first event went fine. Who's to say that the other services wouldn't have went well? To which I'd say, Night in Terracin is going to feel like a weird fluke of an event when you see what happened with A Million Lives. But before A Night in Terracin even happened, A Million Lives was being planned. It was announced in October of 2023, this event happening for spring 2025. Now, that's not abnormal. It just means that she didn't plan this in 6 months. She had a long time to plan. It is normal to take a long time to plan things. My friend Nikita, also an author, is also the creator of Belfast Books and Ball Gowns. She was planning that for years before it just took place, just recently in June, and now she's taking 2 years to plan the next one. It's normal to take a really long time to plan an event. Grace had the time, and yet the event looked like this. January 15, 2024, they start collecting author interest forms. Hey, are you an author? Do you want to be here? Now, it's worth noting that all you have to have had was published one book in order to be there, which is great to give debut newer authors a chance. The problem is if you're not ready to host an event or you're not, basically what I'm trying to say is that allegedly it looks an awful lot like freshly published authors who, for many, this was their first event, were taken advantage of by somebody. And this event had a lot of authors. January 25th, 2024, they announced that the event will be at the Baltimore Convention Center, which is a rather large convention center that people have said they've gone to other book events before and they've gone off without a hitch. January 30th, they start announcing authors who will be in attendance. And there, as I said, are an awful lot of authors who were scheduled to be there. Some of them paid Grace to be so that they could be a sponsor. They paid their table fees. And some of them were promised payment by Grace to be there. And some of them had payment promised as well as the promise of lodging and travel cost to be covered. We will come back to the lodging piece. Tickets go live February 1st, 2024, over a year before the event happens, and the ticket breakdown looks like this. Page turner, $50, which gets you access to the vendors, cosplay meetup, content creation room, wait till you see it. But only for one day, which is Saturday. Ticket prices go up from there. So attendees who were in that very empty ballroom paid $250 for a ticket that included the Lavendar Fantasy Ball. The posts promised this, which is also not lavender, but okay. But what the ball actually looked like was, again, this.
Oh yes, everyone. This was real. This was a real fantasy ball that I just attended not even 12 hours ago.
We will come back to that. The point right now is pricing. Percy J, an attending author and also honestly the MVP of this video, says she put her $150 table fee down in February after contacting the event, Grace, about sponsoring in December. And shout out Percy because she has all the receipts and was nice enough to show an email explaining the price breakdown for being a sponsoring author.
After Christmas of 2024, before, I reached out to Archer Fantasy Events to sponsor A Million Lives. I ended up picking the highest tier of sponsorship because I'm just like, $250, why not? It's a good deal. So I was supposed to get my logo on the website, an author takeover day in the Facebook group, an author focus day with several posts about me and my books on social media, a medium window or floor decal, where those were supposed to go, I don't know, and my logo on the tote bag. Now, I have been to other events before where I've seen events do all of these things for other people. So I sent them all of my things, my headshots, my covers, my logo, all that stuff. And on January 20th, they received my $250. And if you're confused, Book Lover was a free sponsorship tier. And by free, that just means if you bring swag, like stickers, bookmarks, art, whatever. People have done wax melts in the past, candles. Those get put in the swag bags for the VIP attendees. But after that email exchange, it's pretty much crickets. I did not, in fact, get my author takeover day in the Facebook group. There was not a single post about me or my books on Archer Management socials. And we also never got confirmation for how many items we needed to bring for the VIP swag bags.
The event starts announcing vendors on February 14th. Then February 18th, they announce that they are accepting interest forms from narrators, as in audiobook narrators, which, if you don't know, have their own followings in the book community. People will attend events just to meet their favorite narrators. I also have a favorite narrator. It's Robin Miles, the greatest of all time. So this is shaping up, in theory, to be a huge event. But there's a distinct lack of information being advertised by Grace. Other than who is going over the next year, that's really all you find out.
About 2 weeks before the event, I actually went on the event's website to see what I was actually, getting into. And I started counting the number of authors, vendors, and narrators that were actually coming to the event. It was slated at somewhere around 120. Those kind of numbers are huge. But I had not seen any advertising on behalf of the management company for this event.
Now, lots of stuff going on behind the scenes is normal for an event, but the scarcity of info for an event with this many people supposed to be going, not as attendees, but authors, vendors, narrators, and influencers, is very odd, is a big red flag. One of the authors who paid an awful lot of money to be there was Hope E. Davis, and she noted how Archer Management hadn't contacted her in the months right before the event, so she reached out.
Around February and March, I started to get concerned about this event. And this is because I had signed up for another event, Enemies to Lovers by Tea and Tropes, which was amazing, by the way. And they were sending all this information. And when they were sending all this information, I suddenly realized I didn't have any from Archer Events, the people behind A Million Lives. So I did email Archer Fantasy Events Grace sometime in March or April just to get some details, because I was getting concerned and things weren't really adding up. I also hadn't seen the event advertised anywhere, which was concerning because I had seen the Enemies to Lovers event advertised, and so I was kind of curious why I hadn't seen this one. Grace answered my email, answered all my questions, and I will say she was responsive. And so while there were still red flags, again, no advertisement, no one was talking about it on social media, because she was a nice person, I kind of went with it.
But it wasn't just Hope feeling this way. Other authors and vendors also felt like the lack of communication was weird and reached out.
So I was a little concerned, and I reached out in December and I said, hey guys, I said, hey Grace, how many people are coming? Because I need to know how many books to bring. She said 400. Tickets were sold in December. So I said, it's local. I can drive. Fast forward to this month, or these last couple of weeks, where I had not heard anything. I had no specific communication given to the featured authors, or me personally. Maybe the others were given communications, but nothing was said about my hotel room. Nothing was said about the appearance fee that I was supposed to bring or supposed to be given. Nothing was said about any kind of spotlight, any kind of featured posts, anything. So I reached out 2 times through email and 1 through Discord because I didn't know where I was supposed to go. I knew that the Hilton was the room block. I assumed it was there, but I didn't know if I needed to give a confirmation number, if there was some kind of process that was given for the featured authors.
One author who was in attendance, Lara, reached out in the A Million Lives Discord and asked how many attendees would be there, and Grace responded saying it would be between 500 and 600. And vendors needed to know this, not just for shits and giggles, but because they need to know how much product they need to bring for an event. They have to pay to travel. fill with product, so having accurate numbers is important. But another red flag, over the course of the next year on A Million Lives socials, Archer Management socials, graphics start going up advertising price reductions. The closer we get to the event, the more the price comes down. 20% off, 30% off, 50% off, then 40% off again. Attendees who did buy tickets were promised not just a lineup of authors, but also a lineup of narrators, a bookish tattoo vendor, a business that sprays edges of books. So if you're not familiar, that looks like this, where they color the edges of the book. Also, I always take the opportunity to say, read Your Blood, My Bones by Kelly Andrew. Thank you. And depending on what kind of ticket they bought, they were promised swag bags. People were supposed to have badges for the event. People were also supposed to have bookish entertainment. There were supposed to be panels. Now let's go back to the swag bags real quick. In order to do swag bags, you need product. Whose product? The attending authors who pay for that swag and sent it into Archer Management. Percy J was one such sponsor. She says in a video that the items and the info that they sent as sponsors for the swag bags for the event disappeared into the void, which Archer Management ended up blaming on the convention center.
The VIP ticket holders didn't have swag bags. The swag bags were thrown away by the convention center.
There's no swag bags for people who paid to go to this.
But it wasn't just sponsors. Many things did not come to fruition that were promised to a variety of people, like the promise of paid lodging for some, and the content creation room, and the assumption that panels would have chairs, and also literally just water. Let's talk about the lodging thing. Grace claimed that the Hilton, which is attached to the Baltimore Convention Center, which she had scheduled a room block for, had stopped returning her emails and calls. Due to this, she said she was going to move people from the Hilton attached to the convention center to the Days Inn across the street.
And on the Wednesday, before we all flew out, the featured authors got an email saying, hey, my rep at the Hilton has not been answering my phone calls or emails over the past week. Past week? Why wasn't this situated over a month ago? And said that she couldn't confirm bookings. And so she was instead moving all the featured authors to the Days Inn across the street. Y'all look at this. There are freaking scratch marks on this bed, bro.
Apparently, this hotel was a nightmare, and it also allegedly may not have been ADA compliant.
And we are authors with these heavy suitcases and boxes. This place did not have a wheelchair ramp. My pregnant ass had to be carrying these 50 plus pound suitcases upstairs.
A hotel that had black mold in the shower, and the ceiling in the shower was also caving in, so that was fun. A friend of mine ended up coughing blood on the second day because their mold was so bad in their room.
So people move from the Hilton to the Days Inn. They are lugging all of their product, and then in the morning, day one of the event, on Friday, they wake up, and at 7 a.m., Percy says that they were given no instructions on where they needed to go when it came to the vendor room, and they were wandering around Baltimore trying to figure out where they were supposed to go.
Oh, this is where the attendees will be coming in, not for you guys. And she proceeds to give me copy paste, because she's driving, the loading dock of how to get in there. Every other event I've gone to has had very clear instructions and maps on how to get to the loading dock and how to do all of that. I literally walked blocks around that area. I was there at 7. I didn't actually get into the setup until 8 o'clock because Google Maps led me in circles. I probably walked 10 blocks with 2 heavy-ass suitcases.
Now, let's talk about the vendor room. First of all, before the event even happened, Percy says that Archer Management sent out an email saying they wanted to dispel some rumors about author tables, one of which was that there would be no tablecloths. I don't know who started this rumor, but it sounds like Grace was just getting ahead of an accusation that was true, allegedly. But when they got there were in fact no tablecloths. Not only were there not tablecloths, the entire arrangement for tables turned into a nightmare. It was supposed to look one way, but because it was not up to code, the entire arrangement fell apart. People didn't know where they were supposed to set up. The readers who were going to the event anticipated a map where they would know where their authors that they wanted to see would be, but everything was just thrown out of whack because Grace did not check with the event to make sure that everything was up to code before setting this table arrangement.
I am a featured author and my table was given away. I don't blame the person who was at my table. I think it was a case of the map being a hot mess and the people who were helping us find our tables not knowing where we were supposed to go. So I'm walking around for 20 minutes trying to figure out where to go, and I'm told to just sit at this empty table that's not my spot on the map, not the spot that attendees will be able to find me. I set up and I'm told that if someone comes to says that this is their table, to just send them to the organizer and she'll deal with it.
I had an assigned table and I show up and I'm like, oh, there was an issue with seating, just pick an open table, of which there were tons. When I picked my table, there was still one next to me that was open, and from where I sat, I could see 4 open tables.
So that was just setup. And now we get to registration. Registration looked like this. So, okay. Good. There were no signs besides this one at registration on day 1. Grace naturally had an excuse for this, saying that the hotel didn't allow her to have signs in certain areas, rather than saying what is probably true, allegedly, which is that she just didn't bring any.
There's no badges, wristbands.
They were supposed to have badges, but the badges were shattered. Grace said that the badges arrived shattered. Actually, let me go find my BookNet Fest badge. Hold on.
Hi, it's me, and I'm an idiot because I couldn't find my badge, so I just picked up the nearest similar material, which was my kid's car line pass, which literally has my kid's elementary school name on it. I guess I'm trying to dox myself, and so I'm looking at this footage and I'm like, what the fuck, Rachel? Anyway, so a badge for a convention is made of like this sort of like plasticky cardstock type material. You will notice this can't shatter. It can bend. It doesn't even tear. It doesn't even tear. This is what badge material is made out of for conventions. It doesn't shatter, it doesn't tear, it bends. It can't do that because it's not glass, which shatters. So unless Grace ordered glass badges, which I doubt, I have to say that that doesn't seem super plausible.
So there were no signs, no badges. Everybody had the same wristbands. So there was no way for security to identify if you were part of the event or not part of the event. And Grace said not to worry about it because she memorized everybody's faces.
She had security, but the security guards didn't have any way to verify if anyone should be let in or out. And I guess maybe she told them just to let everyone in because there were no wristbands, no badges, no identification, nothing. They would just let people in, including our paid assistant, without even checking to see if she was registered or if she was supposed to be there. When we asked her how we would be let in the next day, if we'd have any trouble with security, this, that, or the other, she said, oh no, it's okay. She knew all of our faces.
Perfect. So then the vendor hall, which is below, and then there is more of the event stuff like the content creation room and the panel room, etc., which is up some escalators apparently. Down in the subterranean floor where all of the authors were shoved, the doors open, barely anybody shows up in the vendor hall. But honestly, so much more went wrong than that they could have possibly imagined than just people not showing up. Because even if 600 people had shown up, everything that went wrong, not just with the badges, but everything else, was so bad, it would have been made worse by 600 people showing up. There were accessibility issues. There was no water. Actually, going back to the whole anybody could have been in this place because there were no badges and nobody to verify, it reminds me of that video of that guy pretending to be Joel Osteen who fakes his way all the way into an event pretending to be Joel Osteen. Somebody could have Joel Osteened this. There was nobody checking. The swag bags were thrown away by the venue, as I said, except no, they weren't, according to the venue. And then the vendors start having issues. A tattoo vendor was scheduled to be there. The Elva Stephanie is her name. She was the tattoo artist. She was a featured vendor, meaning she was supposed to get paid $1,000 for an appearance fee. She did not receive this, and she recounts her experience saying that she was not given what she needed to ensure a sanitary environment, including like partitions to enclose the space. And she also was not given anything to ensure that like biohazard requirements were being met since, you know, we're dealing with needles during tattoos. And she also obviously needs electricity to tattoo, not just for the tattoo. What are they called? Tattoo machines, but also for things like stencils, printing out stencils. And Archer management did not ensure this.
I did not have electricity, bro. I ended up having to freehand most of the tattoos that I did on Friday. Now, while I have the skill set to do that, and it is not a fucking problem, that also means that people that need to go to do something can't do it. It was so dead Friday that I ended up tattooing mostly all tattooers all day.
I can't seem to find any information on what happened with the Cruel Prince cosplay meetup that was scheduled for 1:30 p.m. I looked through a million TikToks for a million lives, and I didn't see anybody saying anything about the Cruel Prince cosplay meetup, so I have no idea if that even happened on day one. At 2 o'clock to 2:50, entertainment was scheduled with the Bookish Song Collective, a duo who does, as the name suggests, bookish songs. Here's a video they put up showing the difference between doing an event that has been properly planned versus doing what happened at A Million Lives. Yep, that was them sitting on the floor. When they spoke about this, they said they were given nothing to work with, and they tried to find Bluetooth speakers with which to play their music to the audience, and the audience consisted of about 4 people. Panels on day one. Did you forget that there were panels? I think Grace also forgot, allegedly. The Writing Diversely / BIPOC panel, the World Building panel, and the Indie Author panel. The BIPOC panel did not go well, to put it lightly.
It's a very small room. It's like, I'm like, okay, intimate. I get that. No one is there. I go check the email again, like maybe I'm crazy. Maybe I looked at this wrong. Now it says 1:30. So it's just changing on the fly. I'm like, all right, it's super slow. I'm just going to hang out here and chit chat with the couple of other attendees that are there. And I say couple because there were 2. So we have chairs. There's no table. So it's just like a row of chairs facing the audience. And then there's 2 or 3 rows of chairs that are the audience facing us. No mic, but whatever. I'm loud. It's a small room. I am expecting another BIPOC author to come in and moderate this, right? Tell me why this man that is this color is moderating the BIPOC panel and asking us the same question 17 different ways, over and over and over. And this was on the VIP day, so not everyone could attend. Only the VIPs could attend the BIPOC panel. But it was fine because he has a degree in journalism. He moderated from the back against the doors, looking at his phone, not engaging with the crowd. Train wreck.
One panel I did attend, which was the BIPOC panel. It was literally me and one other attendee in the room, and then the other 3 people in the audience were the assistants to the 3 authors that were on the panel. This guy stood in the back of the room and asked basically the same question 10 different ways to these BIPOC authors, and quite frankly, it was insulting. It felt like he had just used ChatGPT to figure out questions to ask about diversity and BIPOC authors and BIPOC characters and stories. It was really bad. It was really, really bad. And like I said, it was insulting.
Here's where I feel the need to mention a few things about Grace and her husband. Grace is married, and her husband were, maybe still are, allegedly, fundamentalist Christians according to their social media posts. In fact, this isn't even their first event. Actually, can you believe it? Before there was Archer management, there was this young couple running a Bible camp for children, which I shuddered to think how that went for the kids. As a fundie, it's sort of a rite of passage, though, to go to underfunded events at your church. I grew up fundie. I'm very familiar. We've all been in a warehouse on a concrete floor singing, "I'm in the Lord's army." Yes, sir. But here's the thing. I knew this about Grace before I checked her Facebook, okay? I saw her talk in this apology video.
I am wanting to issue a formal apology. I do understand that the ball tonight was not set up to standards. There were a lot of issues with getting set up, and it was not set up well.
And I knew, and that's when I started looking into this, because I said, that's a fundie woman. I know a fundie woman when I see one. And actually not when I see one, when I hear them speak. Fundies have this very particular way that we speak. We. Who's we? I left. Grace has not left it behind, the accent. And I knew my fundie radar is never wrong. I clocked that shit immediately. 2 fundie white people who went to Bible college and have questionable posts on their social media accounts didn't put on an event that felt great for marginalized folks to be at. What would surprise you is that they did this at all and thought it would be a good idea. The lack of self-awareness from these two, astronomical. One author commented on how uncomfortable this event was to be at for marginalized folks.
It was not my crowd. There were not people there looking for Black and brown fantasy or queer fantasy. The moment I said those words, a lot of people lost interest. So I think it speaks to the type of environment that you set. You know, if you are another person of color or a queer person, you go where you think you will be comfortable. And I don't think that this was set up in a way where people of color or any marginalized people knew that they would be safe or that they would, have things that they're interested in.
But the panel is where this came out further because Grace's husband was the moderator and it was supposed to be moderated by some guy named Victor who's a journalist or something. And instead it was Grace's husband.
I've been told that the BIPOC panel was narrated by a man and that his questions were a little insulting.
Midway through the event, there was supposed to be a lunch break, and apparently Grace just shouted that it was lunchtime. So that's something. There's also the issue of the bookstore. The bookstore that was used or was supposed to be used to buy the books for the event so that they would make sure that they had books at the event was the Minute Owl bookstore. And this is owned by an author who attended the event. So she ran two tables, her author table and her husband ran the bookstore table. She was asked to be the bookstore only 4 or 5 weeks before the event because Grace claimed something happened with the previous bookstore. Selena says that allegedly, Grace never put in orders, and so many authors were supposed to have books but didn't have books to sign at the event.
The books that Grace was providing, she didn't even provide all the books. So there were some authors who had no books for me to sell, which means they had no books to sign, which means they were just sitting there and doing nothing for 2 days. So these authors didn't even have books, and she blamed me. So naturally I had to do 2 days worth of damage control. But I kind of expected that because before the event, I was told that she was telling people I was scamming her, I was stealing money from her, and I was holding her to a super strong contract for 2 years. Keep in mind, we didn't have a single contract. Everything was done via email and text, so we didn't have a contract. And if she was unhappy with anything, that was on her because I offered to split profits multiple times. So again, 2 days of damage control, making sure people knew that this was not on me, but I still did everything I could to take care of these authors and while also working my own author booth.
Grace had promised to make a purchase of about $8,000 to provide the books and then didn't buy the books. Grace ended up taking stock from Selena's own books that she wrote to use as decoration / free-for-all material at the Lavender Fantasy Ball, and also during the vendor hall sent attendees to Selena's table for free books, allegedly.
She just walked away with stock from my booth, meaning I couldn't sell those books. And then people started showing up at my booth saying that they were informed that they could just take a book for free from my booth. No warning or anything from Grace about this. They just took a book. And all of these attendees were so sweet and they felt so uncomfortable doing so, but they were scammed too. So I'm like, no, take a book. You at least deserve to get something out of this.
By the way, Selena's book sounds good, so I bought it. Actually, we'll talk about all the books I bought later, all the books that I bought because of this later, and nobody tell my husband about it. Stay focused. Stop getting me off track. That was just day one, and that's not even all of it. Coco, who I will link below, shared a video of the content creation room, by the way, and I know you're dying to see it. What did Grace come up with?
I was supposed to have access to a content creation room, which literally ended up just being a blank room, like conference room in the Baltimore Convention Center. There was literally nothing in there.
Here it is. So that's an empty room. Like theoretically, you could create content in it. I could sit in there and do this on the floor. Sure, technically. Grace probably said, allegedly, well, if they use their imaginations, they'll figure it out. Anything is a content creation room if you try hard enough. The people who were moved to the Days Inn across the street got back to their hotel after day one. Their key cards stopped working. And they learned because Archer Management, their credit card didn't work. And so Grace says, hey, sorry about that. My identity got stolen.
So we go to check in. I pay for my separate early check-in and her credit card doesn't go through. So I email her. I call her on Instagram. She tells me her identity was stolen, so they froze all of her accounts.
So now it's up to the vendors, many of whom were promised lodging paid for, to pay for their own lodging at the Days Inn, which according to attending author Selena, had serious black mold problems. Day 2, while the turnout for day 2 was certainly better, once again, the schedule was all messed up and there was little to no direction.
There was a lot of miscommunication on what time it actually started, so I got there 30 minutes late because I was under the impression that it started at 10. Some people were under the impression that it started at 9. It did start at 9. Half of us weren't there till 10 because that's what we were originally told.
Not just the start time was told to be 2 conflicting times, but also panel times were told to be 2 conflicting times.
We were told that our panel started at 10:30, but the website said the panel started at 10. All of the panelists on the LGBTQ plus panel were told that the panel started at 10:30. So we were going to stay there and sell our books and make what little sales we could because it had picked up a little bit on Saturday. There were more people there Saturday than there were on Friday, to the point where I almost didn't go to the panel because my table was set up like right when you came in. So I was like one of the first tables that people saw when they came in. So I was worried about missing those initial morning sales, and I was worried about, making enough to earn out for the weekend, which you guys all know how that went.
Panels on day 2 included an LGBTQ plus panel and a narrators panel. So let's talk about the queer panel. Once again, Grace's husband is going to be the moderator. Why? So they were told the questions beforehand. Sarah Zane, who made a lot of really helpful content about what happened at A Million Lives, who was an attending author, she discusses this in a TikTok where she shows a screenshot of the questions that would be asked, which were, hold on, my eyesight's terrible. Diversity LGBTQ plus. What's the difference between representation and good representation in your view? Do you write from your own lived experiences, or do you explore identities different from your own? How do you navigate that responsibly? Do you feel a pressure to get it right when writing LGBTQ plus characters, especially if you're representing identities other than your own? In genres that have historically excluded LGBTQ plus characters, how do you carve out that space for them? Have you ever challenged genre conventions or tropes through the lens of queer identity in your work? What has been your experience with publishing and promoting books featuring LGBTQ plus characters? Have you seen progress in the industry? Have you worked with queer sensitivity readers? How did that impact your work? What advice would you give to writers who want to include LGBTQ plus characters but are afraid of getting it wrong? Wow. As a gay, if I were on that panel, I would be like, hey, what are we doing? What are we doing here? What are we doing?
I was on the LGBTQ plus panel. We were told that the moderator for our panel was going to be Victor, a journalist friend of the organizer. So we were excited about that we were going to be interviewed by a journalist. I was personally confused by the questions because a lot of them seemed to be asking the same thing.
Something I really like about, again, BookNet Fest is that all of the panels are diverse. It's not just marginalized groups talking about marginalized identities. It's marginalized people are represented in every single panel, and they bring that to the conversation because everything is interconnected. There's no way to talk about books while divorcing them from the humans who create them and the humans who read them. So we bring those conversations into every conversation. We don't have to be like, all right, but now this is just the diversity panel. We can only do the diversity here. Just make your panels diverse. Anyway, that's something that I really appreciate about BookNet Fest.
We went in and it was just us and a guy in the room. We didn't know the guy. The guy didn't say anything to us. So we went in, we sat. There were only 5 people sitting in the audience. 3 of those people were author assistants who came with us. So we were expecting Victor to be there. That was not who was there. This is the man that was there. I don't have a picture of him from there, but this is the man. So I have since found out that this man is Grace's husband. When I say this man stood in the back of the panel and did not say anything, I am not exaggerating. Molly over here, she took it on herself to moderate the panel, and she had some questions that we ended up liking better than the questions that we'd been provided with, so that was fine.
Grace's husband allegedly took a phone call and left the room 20 minutes into the panel. The narrator panel was after this, and the narrator panel had no fucking chairs.
Come on in. Sorry. We're kind of just getting cozy. We're waiting for chairs. If they show up, if they don't, this was unique. This is a unique finale. We're just rolling. How many book events can you go to and say, you know what, I sat on the floor and listened to a crowd of narrators?
Narrator Carmen Chantal said she was told the day before the event that she could moderate this panel. It was her first time moderating a panel. She had to shout that it was happening. She had to announce it was happening via shouting.
I yelled as loud as I could with permission from the organizer. I announced that the narrator panel was going to be happening in 15 minutes. I shouted that shit as loud as I could because I wanted people to attend and hear all about the great wide world of audiobook narration.
Carmen did great with what she had. And again, what she was given, what she had been given by Archer Management, was absolutely nothing at all.
Audiobook narrators are just like a form of being a voice actor. They're pretty cool people, you know. I mean, Zach's okay, but the rest of us, we are all pretty cool people. If you guys just want to ask us questions, hit us up on Facebook, TikTok, Instagram, wherever you find us. Email us from our websites. We're happy to answer questions.
The content creation room, remember her, was not available for day 2. That empty room, which people paid extra for their tickets for, wasn't available because of some sort of malfunction. What could have possibly malfunctioned in this room? Who fucking knows? The Bookish Song Collective came back for day 2, still no speakers, and they played their songs on the floor with an iPad to help them. And no, they never got the payment that they were promised. At 3 p.m., the event ends, minus the Lavender Fantasy Ball, which is scheduled for 7:30 p.m. that evening. Authors start packing up, and I can't imagine how dejected and depressed these people must have been at this point. Some of them said that they packed up and they got back in their cars and they cried the whole way home. This was a financial burden for everybody involved. I don't think a single author who paid to be there made back their $150 table fee. I don't see how you could. And most of them only sold books to each other because, again, there were more authors than there were attendees. So many of them were out thousands of dollars because of this event. And then we have the ball.
This is the ball. It's in the basement of a convention center. That's a concrete floor. My fucking knees hurt.
So people paid hundreds of dollars for tickets to enter an empty room with shitty tables, no tablecloths, the recurring theme of no tablecloths, with rose petals not scattered, but placed 2.5 inches apart because there certainly wasn't enough to just scatter them on the tables. Books that we now know were allegedly stolen from Selena were placed as party favors / decoration on these barren tables in a room with no music, no dance floor, and certainly nothing fantastical unless, like the content creation room, you really use your goddamn imagination. I really don't know why we called it a lavender fantasy ball. Like the fake ass rose petals weren't even purple. We didn't even try. But not only was there no decorations, there was no food. Well, there were some desserts. But that's not what people had anticipated. Again, theme of the weekend, not what people had anticipated. There was also a cash bar. People paid so much money for this event. This wasn't a $20 add-on for a little dancey dance. That was a lot of money just to be there, and you still had to pay for drinks. But I'm not just saying alcohol, I'm saying if you wanted water. Percy's pregnant, and if she wanted water, she had to pay $5. Grace had said in Discord just days before the event that the DJ was in the hospital and the company couldn't send someone else, but they did get music because, I'll just let Percy tell you, I can't even say this.
The first hero of our finale is Speaker Steve! Here he is, everyone, the infamous Bluetooth speaker that provided all of our music for the ball. But don't give credit to the creator for Speaker Steve. This lovely security guard right here took pity on us and brought Speaker Steve from his home just so we could have some music at this ball. So yes, friends, that means the plan for this ball was for us to stand in this giant empty room with no food, a cash bar, and stand there in silence.
Folks tried to make the best of it, mingling and hanging out. They're already dressed up. They have nowhere to go other than down the escalator into this barren basement with fake rose petals. And they hang out and they're trying to make the most of it, but they're angry. And Grace is there and they're like, you know what? We should probably say something. So author Callista Neath takes it upon herself to talk to Grace, the organizer, and gets Grace to agree that she needs to issue refunds.
These people that were with me at the time She said that she was going to issue an apology on Insta or TikTok or whatever, something out there, and I told her to tag me in it so I can see it, and she said that she's issuing refunds. See, we all heard that, right? Issuing refunds, yes, yeah.
Grace then films this video 30 minutes into the ball.
I'm wanting to issue a formal apology. I do understand that the ball tonight was not set up to standards. Getting set up and it was not set up well. I want to apologize. If you would like a refund, please contact me and I will issue a refund immediately. Thank you.
Saying that she would do refunds and that the ball was not up to standards and that anybody who requests a refund will get them. I don't understand Grace at all. If this were me and I'd caused all of this, my heart would have given out from all of the weight, the crushing weight of how much I had messed up. I guess that Grace is just built differently. Allegedly. She did say, though, in an email that she'd be issuing refunds after the fact. We'll come back to that in a second. I want to mention that Grace was mentioned by several people to have been allegedly talking shit throughout the weekend.
First of all, we had a lovely tattoo artist. Apparently, the event coordinator was saying very negative things about the tattoo artist during the event to the attendees.
I got a tattoo by Elva, who is amazing, by the way. She is not unprofessional, despite what that organizer said. She's an incredible tattoo artist. She's actually one of my favorite tattoo artists I've ever worked with.
So allegedly, I'm a diva.
So allegedly, my friends and I were all put up against the wall because we're the problem children. And we're loud and inappropriate and don't want to be an embarrassment to the event. Now, obviously, I didn't hear this with my own ears, which is why I say that allegedly very hard. But this was said before the event. But according to some other authors, vendors, and attendees, the coordinator was still talking mad nonsense about us during the event, calling us difficult to work with, calling some of us divas. And so allegedly, the event coordinator and I had beef, which is odd because, honestly, I don't even know who she is, so this is a surprise to me.
If that's true, that's bonkers work from Grace. I don't even know. I don't know what to say. I don't know what to say about that. I'm horrified. Then Grace emails the vendors and says this: "Dear authors and vendors, I wholeheartedly apologize the failures of this weekend. Grace, have you ever written a coherent sentence in your life? Oh my God, this event was unacceptable and I will do everything in my power to make it up to all of you. I do want to go over a few things before I go over how the refunds will work. One, I did not make any money off this event. I put thousands of dollars into this event. All author fees and ticket sales went directly to bills for the event. The author fee of $100 included the $40 charge of your table and $15 charge per chair, and everything on top of that went straight into convention center costs. There were 603 tickets sold for this event with an attendance of 140. I do apologize for that because ticket sales was there, but the attendance was clearly not. Refund details. Featured authors will receive the attendance fee that was promised, compensation for travel, and to cover the hotel issues. Attending authors and vendors who have requested a refund will receive back the table fee and the assistant fee. All refunds will be processed by May 31st. If you have any questions, please let me know." Obviously, and allegedly, so much scapegoating was done.
Excuses on repeat. She blamed everyone and their mother. She blamed a bookstore, tattoo artist, Baltimore Convention Center. She blamed everyone and threw everyone under the bus and refused to take any accountability.
People stopped believing Grace long before the end of the event.
Show me proof you took my money and spent it on this. I'm done.
People were demanding receipts, rightfully so, and some folks took it upon themselves to ask the scapegoated parties what actually happened. For instance, Laura of Laura on Fire Writes emailed the venue regarding the badges getting smashed to bits, amongst other issues. And Laura notes that she sent this before the ball, so she didn't even get to include that Grace blamed the hotel for the lavender ball decorations disappearing. Here's the response that Laura got from the hotel. "Hi Laura, sorry you had an unpleasant experience at your event this weekend. I can tell you that we didn't receive any information from the event organizer about missing boxes from the event. I checked in multiple times with show management and heard nothing but positive comments about how things were going on site. Directional signage is absolutely allowed to be placed throughout the public spaces to help guide attendees as long as it is provided by the event. We provide easels complimentary for them to be placed on if needed. I'm pretty sure A Million Lives Book Festival has been assigned the same convention services manager since it was contracted. I would go nuts if I had that much turnover in my department. And lastly, loading and unloading information is discussed at various points during the planning process, but I can check to make sure this was covered. Again, I am sorry your experience wasn't as expected, and I hope you will return to the BCC for a future event. Enjoy the rest of your weekend. So Grace had said that there was so much turnover at the BCC that they didn't provide signs, they didn't allow signs, that she just kept blaming, allegedly, the BCC for different things. And Laura's emails between her and the BCC show that this allegedly is not the case. So the question on everybody's mind is, where is the money? Going back to author Sarah Zane, she has a great TikTok on what happened that breaks down where she thinks that the money allegedly went.
This is the stuff that we have proof that was paid for. First off was the hall rental. This was the number for the hall itself. This was the number for the conference rooms, bringing us to this. And then we have the electrical, and I know what you're thinking, the tattoo artist didn't have electricity, but the book sprayed edge people did. 2 of the book sprayed edge tables did. We have the staffing, which was the security guards and the other staff that was required of her, which brings us to 15. And then this splits off a little bit. You could argue that she only spent 22, but I am going to be using the 27.
Those were her expenses. So what was the income? She had around 100 authors who paid table fees to attend, and she sold tickets. She said she sold 600 tickets, which is unlikely. I think what may have happened is, just like her event on Eventbrite for her book upcoming, remember how I mentioned she had a release day party planned on Eventbrite? There were tickets for sale for $0. Anybody could have, allegedly, gone on the Eventbrite website for A Million Lives and bought free tickets to A Million Lives if anybody needed to make it look like 600 tickets had sold. I'm not saying that's what happened. I'm just saying that that's a plausible explanation to make it look like there had been 600 tickets sold. Around 50 people or 40 people, depending on who you asked, attended day 1. Let's call it 50. Sarah Zane says 90 more people attended on day 2 for a possible revenue of $35,000 in the end, between the ticket sales and the author table fees, yada yada. But then with $27,000 in paid expenses. But if you'll recall, the tickets kept getting discounted. So even if we actually sold all those tickets, we don't know how much revenue was received because the tickets kept getting discounted. And further, there's a bunch of stuff that can't even go on the expenses paid list because Archer Management promised things that weren't ever paid. Appearance fees, hotel expenses for 10 people, the Bookish Song Collective has not been paid, neither has the tattoo artist. Also, Sarah Zane adds this additional caveat about the bookstore.
She bought books for the bookstore. We don't have receipts for that, but I do know that she bought the books for the bookstore, and the books for the bookstore were there and were not purchased by the bookstore. She had bought the books for the bookstore, but we don't really know how much she spent. There is no way to account for that. We do know that she bought them full price on Amazon, but besides that, I don't know how much they were. I'm just wanting you to keep that in mind.
So let's talk about refunds. Refunds were supposed to be done and processed by May 31st, 2025. May 31st rolled around and an email from Archer Management. Hi all, this was sent to everybody. This is being sent on behalf of Grace. She was taken to the hospital this morning around 4 a.m. with intense back pain and loss of feeling in her lower back. At this point, the doctors are not sure what is going on, and due to the weekend, not all of the staffing or tests are available. This may delay refunds slightly, and she was planning to process them today. She will process the refunds as soon as she is able. Some folks were able to dispute charges through, I believe, PayPal and maybe Square or something, but it was like 2 to 3 people. The vast majority didn't see a dime by May 31st as they were promised. And then on June 1st, another email from Archer Management. Dear authors and vendors, I am very sorry that refunds were not distributed by the date I said. All the money for this event went into the event and there was no money left over. When I chose the date for the refunds, I did not think there would be any issues getting a loan by the date to process the refunds and pay the featured guests that were promised fees and hotel rooms, but with every personal loan application came a denial either instantly or a few days later. The last loan application that I filled out were supposed to be processed and had promised of getting accepted as I was using collateral, but they were not processed in time. The weekend, other than my trip to the hospital, has been filled with applying to every instant loan possible and getting denied for everyone. Addressing the hospital rumors and statements being made, she gave a bunch of personal information that Percy redacted. And then it says, questions regarding the canceled events. The author fees that were paid were used to pay the deposits for the venues. I cannot get those deposits back, but I am doing everything I can to repay those fees, as in for the next event, the Starlight, whatever the fuck. If this had not gone viral, I wonder if that next event would still have happened. I think, in my personal opinion, that it would have. It should not have had to go viral for you to know that you messed up. You knew before everybody got there that everything had gone very off the rails. The onus should not have been on the people affected to ask for a refund. You knew that they were all owed refunds and you knew that you should have refunded them. Percy said this about the event, and I think that it's really important to note.
At the end of the second day of signing, I abandoned my table and went around talking to all these new authors. I had to tell them that this kind of event is not normal and what happened was not their fault. Because people are thousands of dollars in debt because of the lies and the mismanagement and the false promises. This wasn't just a bad event. This is a financial disaster. This ruined careers at the very beginning of them.
Percy also said, all the news outlets who interviewed me asked if I thought AML was just as bad as Fire Festival or the Willy Wonka experience. And here was my response every time. At least Fire Fest had food. At least Willy Wonka had decorations. What's worse, AML wasn't a failed concert for privileged people or a disappointing afternoon for a child after an encounter with the unknown. This was a scam that financially devastated over 100 small business owners and destroyed author careers before they could even start. Attendees have specifically shouted out the Baltimore Convention Center security team. Percy said in particular that Speaker Steve's owner especially was so incredibly helpful and went out of his way. She said they were lovely and did a lot of the heavy lifting when it came to directing people since there were no signs. Atlas Creed was an affected indie author who was at A Million Lives, and he has a website called Indie Author Connect. And he created a Million Lives recovery page with a list of all the attending authors, vendors, narrators, and direct links to their websites or socials. This is the best way to direct support since, you know, he already did all the organization. So I'm going to leave the link down below. It'll be like the first thing after the chair link. Going through said website, I swear to God, if any of you tell my husband about this. Going through said website, I did end up buying some books. I did buy Atlas's book, which is called Armitage. It was on Libro FM, so I snagged that sucker. And I also got 2 more audiobooks of Friction by S.J. Lee and The Stars Would Curse Us. A lot of these books sounded really good, but then I thought I could, hold on, I have to go get my kids. I will finish filming this when I come back. Okay, I had to go get the kids. While I was gone though, I did get a notification related to what I was just saying, where I had ordered Selena's book from the Midnight Owl Books and it just shipped on a Sunday. Girl is putting in the work, putting in the hours. I ended up grabbing 3 audiobooks and 8 physical copies. That's only 11, Carlos. Nobody tell my husband, Carlos. That's only 11, Carlos. It's just barely above double digits. In all seriousness, though, I feel like shit about all of this. I hate that this happened. Writing the script for this and watching all of your videos was painful. As I was watching videos through this, I'm watching Percy's and I'm scrolling through, all the videos of people who were there. I mean, there's tons of people there. And then I noticed that somebody had done an author interview, and I recognized the author, an author that I read her first book, which it's L.M. Sanguinet, her first book, Welcome to Visanthi, which I read years ago and I enjoyed. I've interacted with her and she was just lovely, and I was so sad to see her pop up in the videos there. So I went and bought a copy of that, and I bought a bunch of other physical copies over on bookshop.org just to try to because Bookshop donates to indie bookstores, as does Libro, so trying to invest back into the community by whenever I do stuff like this, like when I buy books to donate to the local schools that, I specifically go out of my way to buy books that Moms for Liberty won't like for various reasons to donate them to schools. I try to always buy through, my local bookstore, which was Black English, but unfortunately, Gwen Henderson, who owned Black English, passed away. So anyways, the point is, if you have the means to buy a bunch of books, try to do so through, buy indie books as much as possible, but also try to buy through distributors like BOOKSHOP to just like continue to put back money back into pockets that aren't Jeff Bezos's pockets, if you're able to, which I'm able to because of this being my job. So I'm trying to just put the money back into the book community. Oh, I just feel like shit about all this. Like, it's 21 pages of notes about this, and I just hate that this happened. I don't need physical copies of books, so I'm going to do giveaways for them. I do giveaways over on my bindery now, which is, it's free to sign up. It's easier to do giveaways there because then I can email the people who win, whereas doing them in YouTube comments is always a fucking disaster because nobody ever responds to YouTube comments and I can't email you. Anyway, the point is, if you want to participate in a giveaway, it's completely free, not, pulling a Grace, allegedly a Grace, and, trying to scam anybody or anything. Just go sign up to the free level of my bindery, and I'm going to be running giveaways for some of the books that I bought. This giveaway is not run by Archer Management, so you can trust that you will actually receive the book. The bar is in hell. If this is discouraging to you as a creator, as an indie author, as a vendor in the bookish space, and you feel like you can't go to events now because you're worried about being scammed, please know that this is so abnormal. Most events are not like this. I mean, we hear about the worst of the worst, but most events are not like this. Even first-time events. So, like, again, my friend Nikita just ran Belfast Books and Ball Gowns. That was her first major event, and that it was not like this at all. Smaller events also, that are not 600 odd people or more. It shouldn't be like this either. I go to BookNet Fest every single year, which is about 200 people. It's a smaller event. And while things go awry, like this, just back in May, the photo booth guy showed up late. There were a couple issues with mics. It wasn't like this. This is so abnormal. BookNet Fest is the best book event, in my opinion. Please come next year. It's in May. Tickets are below. It is a small but powerful event. And at that event, the last 2 years in particular, we have talked about, no matter if you are an author or an influencer or just a reader or a reviewer, you don't go things alone in this community. Reach out to somebody if you have questions or concerns about events or sponsorships or whatever. You can DM me if you have a question about something and I can ask around. This community is big, but it's also small. Somebody knows somebody who can answer your questions or talk you through any concerns you might have. Don't go things alone. Ask. It can't hurt to ask and reach out to somebody, even if it's a stranger. Hey, is this normal? If you're thinking about planning an event, Jesus. If you're thinking about planning an event, please make sure that you know what you are in for before you plan an event. Don't start anything. Don't start planning anything unless you have your full stable footing underneath you. And if you're planning an event and it's starting to look like this, if things are falling through cracks, if you're using half-assed, barely a unsticky Band-Aid measure to try to fix things, stop now. Get help. Tell the people that you already took money from. Return it if you can. Start fixing it now and never, ever, ever do it again. And if you see something like this happening, please say something. I don't know that any of us really would have known to the degree that we know if it weren't for the authors who went speaking up about it. Other authors could have possibly gotten allegedly scammed further had they not spoken up. So if you see something, say something. Check out the links below. Check out the affected authors. Grab some books if you want. If you want to win some of the books, you can sign up to my bindery. I'll be running some giveaways, probably monthly, because my capacity to get to the post office is a monthly deal, not a bi-monthly deal. But monthly giveaways will be done over on Bindery if you are interested. Thank you so much for watching. Comments and questions to go down below. If you made it this far, leave a purple heart because we didn't get our lavender fantasy ball. And in fact, we didn't even get any lavender. There wasn't even any purple. So leave a purple heart if you made it this far. Thank you so much for watching, and I will see you next time. Bye. And before I go, I have to say thank you for being a friend. Therapy Bills patrons, and those are Alexander, Andy, Ashley 8, Astra, Beck, Call Me Kodiak, Choco's Homesick for Taiwan, DJ Rocktopus, Ellie, Emerald Dodd, Eric, Jade L, John E, Jory, Julie D, K, Kai Brecker has not read Six of Crows, Kaleno K, Kelly K, Quinn, Lady Kittybug, Lady Chips, Lemon Jelly, Lex, Other Lex, Lily, Lisa L, Mataraptor, Max B, Megwin Rose, Melissa, Minby, Mixer Boneless, Not So Secretly a Skeleton, Peggy Luhu, Piloting SRN, Rain, Reese, SJ, Samar, Scarlet, Spoopy, Steph B, Super SMA Girl Lily, 3 Raccoons in a Trench Coat, Tori, Urchin Audrey, White Raven 13, and Zorvictia. Thank you all so much for being here and for being a friend. And a huge thank you to my potato starch Marxists, Adrian, Aaron, Alejandra, Ali Oxenfree, Althea, Amanda D, Angelica, Artie the Ninth, Ava, Barry B, Beck Lowe, Binging for Soup, Blue Moon Syrup, Bookish by Jenna, Bookish Rabbit, Bree, Bridget 108, Kate, Caitlin, Carlin, Carly, Casper, Kate W, Kath Cole, Colleen, Corwin, Cosmic Frog, Courtney, Darius, Danielle, Danita, Darren, Desiree Michelle, Dilf Enthusiast, Dorothea Supports Public Education, Draco-chan, Drive-By Thinker, Ebby, Emily A, Emma, Aaron with 2 E's, Erica May, Aaron Starlight, Gadarn, Hannah C, Helen P, Harising, JM Tennant, Jackalope Max, Jay is on Olympus, Jelly V, Jen Michelle, Genderqueer, Jenny G, Jessie Ives, Jessa Sue, Jill, Jojo Bookish, Juicy Wizard, who I just met in person at BookNet Fest, and I was so excited. Caitlin M, Catherine, Katie, Katrina, Kayla, Kaylee, Kayala, Kendra, KMTB, Kayana, Laughing Cat Dog, Laura is Angry, Lauren G, Lazarus Ray, Lindsay M, LP, Lou Siri, Lustful Octopus, Martin, Macy Jane, Maddie, Madison, Man-Eating Plant, Megan, Malara, May, Mima Who, Morgan P, Myth Lesbian, Nicole G, Oxford, supporter, same, Paige P, Penelope, Penny Chilling, Foxglove, Pick a God and Pray, Plague Carrier, Pandemonium, Queen Cereal, Rachel B, Rebecca R, Ren, Flynn, Rhea, Ronnie, Rosie Thorns, Sikoria, Sadie, Saintbringer, Sakia Lume, Sarah H, Sarah the Bear, Shamed, Shannon, Sheen Onion, Sean, Sophie, Talia, That One Cute Chick, This Is Not a Trap, Tiana, Too Thick to Work to Get Today, Triple M, Tito Phoenix, Unicorn Jenny. Thank you all so much for being here and for being a friend.